Trajectory of Catherine's career. Popular culture often presents Tudor royal households, particularly a queen's, as beautiful irrelevancies. Sumptuously dressed ladies-in-waiting whispering behind their fans, dancing or throwing coy glances, are familiar images of life in the Queen's establishments. In many works of fiction, these characters seem to spend a good deal of their time giggling over something which is not credibly amusing. The reality was far more interesting. Establishing who Catherine's ladies-in-waiting were was a difficult task. The surviving list, which was for a long time incorrectly believed to be a list of women attached to the household of Anne of Cleves, gives the women by their title or surname, and for a few of the figures I had to undertake some guesswork based on Tudor women with the right background, name, and family ties to court. The more I researched, the more convinced I became that the influence and intentions of Catherine's family had been exaggerated, or at least misrepresented, and acting on the advice of a professor, I began to consider a full-length study of Catherine's horribly compelling story. The result, this book, is as much a study of Catherine Howard's world as it is a study of her personal life. Some biographies have a tendency to inflate and isolate their subjects by endowing them with more importance or independence from the world around them. The impact of religious changes, international diplomacy, and court etiquette will all be discussed in depth, not just because they are fascinating topics in their own right, but because directly or indirectly they shaped Catherine's story. Like the Hampton Court tapestries, it is the details of the background figures and the threads weaving together which together produce the image. Putting her household and her grandmother's at the centre of a biography of Catherine makes her story a grand tale of the Henrician court in its twilight, a glittering but pernicious sunset in which the king's unstable behaviour and his courtiers' labyrinthine deceptions ensured that fortune's wheel was moving more rapidly than at any previous point in his vicious but fascinating reign. Accounts of the gorgeous ceremonies held to celebrate the resubmission of the North to royal control saw Catherine the girl in the silver dress, gleaming, Daisy Buchanan-like, safe and proud above the hot struggles of the poor, the perfect medieval royal consort. Until, like a bolt out of the heavens, a scandal resulted in an investigation in which nearly everyone close to Catherine was questioned, and which, ultimately, wrapped itself in ever more intricate coils around the young queen until, to her utter bewilderment, it choked life from her entirely. The downfall of Catherine Howard took place from November 2nd, 1541, to February 13th, 1542. To narrate and analyse what happened, I relied on 4 or 5 different types of documents. There are the official proclamations and correspondence from Henry's government, principally, but not exclusively, orders issued by the Privy Council, which help establish the broad chronology of Catherine's fall and the Crown's eventual version of events. There are numerous surviving, if incomplete, transcripts of interrogations held between the first week of November and the third week of December 1541, to which we might add the subcategory of the Queen's own confessions, framed as letters to her husband. The diplomatic correspondence of the Habsburg, French, and Clevian ambassadors are invaluable, not least because, while they were initially confused about what was happening, they ultimately left the fullest accounts of events as they unfolded to an outsider's gaze, particularly Charles de Marillac and Eustace Chapuis. Lastly, there are a few surviving letters or chronicles that give clues to the English public's reaction to the affair. Interpretation of this evidence is fraught with difficulty.